So the situation in Kazakhstan is definitely very, unfortunately, very dramatic now, and we can see the popular unrest, which followed by very violent attacks by some radical parts of these protest groups on different administrative buildings, on civil infrastructure, and this is. It seems like, for now at least, it's one of the biggest challenges for the Central Asian regional security in its 30-year post-Soviet development, independent development. And the fact that Kazakh president appealed to the CSTO with requests to send some additional troops means that the situation in the country is very, very fragile, and that's why the Kazakh government is seeking for external support in this situation in order to maintain the stability. But what was very unexpected, that Kazakhstan is usually considered very wealthy, stable, leading country in Central Asia. But it seems that such stability and wealthiness can be very fragile, which demonstrates now the situation in Kazakhstan. So just in a less than a week period, country faced a huge crisis, and institutions which were built after the collapse of Soviet Union demonstrated their full inefficiency. So the first initial conclusion which we can make from the situation, that unfortunately we can see the full fragility of political institutions and armed forces of Kazakhstan, that they couldn't react to the situation properly, they couldn't organize the necessary measures in order to prevent such violent developments and to resist. In Almaty, that just a few thousand violent protesters could easily overcome this big number of police and armed forces and could take control over the city, at least for one day. Now we can see that they're trying to get back this control, the government forces, but at least the fact that these groups could take this control over the government forces in such quick manner demonstrate that there are definitely many issues which should be responded within Kazakh armed forces, police forces, and other security structures. It again demonstrated, and also this administrative system of Kazakhstan was also demonstrated its unreadiness, unpreparedness for such developments, and incapability to respond quickly, to be flexible, and to prevent such developments. And this is very big challenge to the Kazakh sovereignty and Kazakh statehood for now. Now the situation is still not fully clear. We can see that there is a slight down of this popular unrest, and the level of violence slightly decreased. But it seems like that it's because of this preparing of government forces for taking back the control over the cities, especially Almaty. So the main developments happened in the last 2 days in this city. The others, there were also protests in many other provinces, especially in the west of Kazakhstan, but we couldn't see such dramatic developments at the level of Almaty and other parts of the country. But anyway, armed forces I think they're planning some measures to take back the control over the cities and re-establish the administrative structures in order to coordinate the situation. So that the current kind of slight decrease can be explained by this development. But the fact that this is happening a bit slowly is also a bit concerning. So still the situation is not fully clear. The second, the involvement of CSTO forces again demonstrate how dramatic the situation in the country. and the fact that Kazakh leadership was not ready to such development, and they are trying to seek any kind of support in order to overcome this situation. But definitely the involvement of CSTO forces in this internal issue is a big challenge, both to Kazakhstan, Kazakh sovereignty, and also to the organization itself, because according to its charter, CSTO forces should be used only for supporting in some external attacks to the member states. But now we can see mainly internal developments in Kazakhstan, and it's barely can be explained as an for now there are no enough evidence that there is any kind of external involvement, which is now very widely discussed in a variety of medias on post-Soviet space. But the using these forces in such a situation is a big question, to what extent it's needed, and how this can affect to the sovereignty of the country, and how it can affect in a broader sense to the future of Central Asia. Because and it's again, which I mentioned at the beginning, it's the biggest challenge for the regional security of Central Asia in the last 30 years. And this situation will have long-term implications for the whole Central Asia. So this multi-vector foreign policies which Kazakhstan and others regional countries tried to conduct for the recent decades can be under big question after this involvement and after this this dramatic events in Kazakhstan. So, but what we are lacking now in the region again, I think the region itself should be more proactive in this situation and demonstrate its regional approach to this crisis. So we have not very well institutionalized, but still several mechanisms for this. So the consultative meetings of regional leaders and also some meetings between foreign ministers of Central Asian countries. So I think this is the main platform where this situation should be discussed, and at least the Central Asian countries should express some joint position to this situation, at least on it can be even in a kind of declarative manner, but still having a joint statement would be very important in demonstrating the unity and the regional approach to this situation in Kazakhstan. What kind of initial conclusions we can make for the whole region? That definitely the region should continue its efforts to reform its political institutions. Again, the fact that the country which we usually consider that the wealthy one, very stable one, was more developed one in Central Asia is facing such the huge crisis, demonstrate that still institutions in the region in many countries are still very weak. They are not fully established and they are not fully efficient. And we need to continue our reforms in order to make them more efficient, more capable, and flexible in responding to any kind of developments in the future. The second conclusion that the building of very centralized systems in the region again demonstrated its many fragilities. One of the reasons of this unrest in Kazakhstan is the absence of clear and established mechanisms of power transition, which also led to this duality within Kazakh elites and Kazakh government, having two different two leaders and two camps of led by different leaders, and this unclarity who is the leader and who should lead the country in such crisis situation demonstrated its fragility. So I think we need to try to establish a system which is not so dependent on the decisions of one person, having more structures and more dispersed responsibility among different levels of government in the Central Asian countries would be more efficient in reacting to such developments. And finally, the next conclusion, that definitely region is not, and the leaders of world in tackling corruption and nepotism, and I think this is the biggest issue in Central Asia. And we should definitely, again, taking lessons from the situation in Kazakhstan, other regional countries should pay much more attention to these issues and to tackle them as much as they can, because it means that at some period people can be silent on these issues, but definitely this will be always on the agenda, always will be considered and quickly come up during any kind of protest which can appear in regional countries. And finally, again, I was saying we need to have more inter-regional approach to such crisis situations, and not the outside external actors-led organizations, but purely regional institutions should be leading ones in responding to the situation and expressing support. I don't mean military support, but anyway, political, economic support would be very important. Now we can see that Kazakhstan even facing many supply problems, and the lack of fuel, lack of food supply because of this supply chain problems due to this instability. And in such situation, I think regional countries could quickly provide some humanitarian assistance and support to the aid to this country in order to prevent any kind of further deterioration of the situation. Unfortunately, the situation is still not fully clear, and we are following the developments in the country. And the only thing which we can wish to this country is to overcome these difficulties in a more stable and predicted manner. So anyway, these violent attacks, people can express their feelings and can protest. It's definitely their human right and freedom, but having such violent attacks cannot be in a way cannot be reasonable, and this kind of attack should be prevented. And in this situation, first of all, the Kazakhstan needs some period for stabilization, but after that, definitely there should be some necessary reforms and changes in the country, which will resolve the problems which cause this popular unrest and crisis in this country. So we are following and expecting news from this country. Thank you.